What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we are talking about a lot of nibs. A lot of nibs. So these nibs were provided to me for the purposes of review from the fine folks over at Jowo. They are all steel nibs, but they all look very different. So, of course, there's the traditional, like, stainless steel looking nibs. There are some gold-plated stainless steel nibs. There are some duotone, which you can't see here because I have it on this pen. There are some dual-tone nibs. There's also some black steel nibs. And they do also have gold nibs. They have gold 14 karat nibs, gold 14 karat with rhodium plating, rose gold 14 karat, and 18 karat gold. I do not have any of those, but it is something that Jowo does offer. And I have used their gold nibs before from Jowo when I purchased them from the Edison Pen Company many years ago, but I do not have any gold ones for you today. Jowo nibs come in extra fine, fine, medium, broad, and stub. The extra fine and fine nibs are also offered in a flex option if you choose to partake in that. And then they also have like three aesthetic preferences. The aesthetic preferences are not available on every single pen, especially if you're just like buying them stock. But if you get them through Jowo, you have three choices. You have blank, which is like the bulk of what I have here, where it's just the nib itself. There's no crazy design on it. You have a floral logo, so it has these imprints here on the side, and usually if you get it, like let's say from Edison Pen or a different company, they'll also have their logo etched in the middle. And then you also have the bear logo, which is really cool because I have never actually seen this before, where you have an upside down nib and then a bear kind of pushing and or holding it up, depending on the perspective that you want to see it as. These date back as far as 1280. The bear has always captured the heart of Berliners, becoming the city's symbol and mascot. From 2001 on, street art movement inspired by the bear can be found all over Berlin, becoming an integral part of the cityscape. Jowo is a quintessential Berliner company and has incorporated the bear onto its logo, combining tradition and modernity. And you can find it on these nibs here, which is pretty cool. And in the steel option, it is the exact same design, just of course, steel. I was also offered these Bexley fountain pens. These are Bexley Prometheus fountain pens. They're not mine to keep, by the way. I do have to give them back. But for the purposes of this video, I have these pens so that I can easily insert the nib and feed housing because they are just standard international cartridge converter fountain pens, which you can kind of see in here, so that you can easily screw in and out the entire nib housing. So it makes it really easy for me to flip them all over so that we can test them all out together. So right now I have the extra fine in the black plated and the two-tone. So I'm going to move these out of the way here. And I'm going to bring in some paper. And out of sheer curiosity, I dipped these yesterday, so let's see if they're still good to go. They are, pretty much. There we go. So hello. This is the two-toned Jowo steel nib. Extra fine. And I have them dipped in KWZ. It smells like coffee. And guys, this literally smells like a latte. This was sent to me by somebody who follows me on Patreon, and I absolutely adore it. It smells amazing. I love the color. It reminds me a lot of J.Herbin Lit d'été, if it leans more brown than yellow, that Lit d'été does. This nib is very smooth. I like the crispness of the line. You don't get a ton of flex, and that's the same across all of them. but you can squeeze out a tiny bit if you like to. I really like this nib. This is the extra fine two-tone. It does feel a little bit like you're writing with a number 2 size pencil with that feedback, but it's not at all scratchy. It is smooth. This one, the black version of it, is also the extra fine, but you'll notice for whatever reason, it's actually a little bit more broad. This is the black Jowo steel nib, extra fine. But it is also very, very smooth. Same thing where you don't get a ton of flex out of it, but none of these are the actual flex pens. So they're not really meant to do that. It's very, very smooth. It has a little bit less feedback than this one, but that makes sense to me because as you notice here versus here, this is much finer of a line than this. So that makes perfect sense. All right, so swapping these out, I'm gonna use a Kleenex just because I don't want to get ink all on my fingers, but it's really easy. You just twist the entire unit out of the pen itself, and then it is good to go. So let's ink up one of the medium choices. Actually, no, let's go to fine. We'll go right to fine. Let's do this fine. And we will insert this. So Jowo nibs date back to 1852. It would help if I put enough pressure for it to actually screw in. The company first began as the first German manufacturer of steel nibs, partially destroyed actually by the bombing of Berlin during World War II. But the factory was rebuilt, and the company was considered like high value, East German government. And writing, it was like paramount at the time. And in 1994, the company actually went bankrupt, but it was reconstituted by 2 longtime employees, which I do not know how to pronounce their names. So apologies, but it's Joachim Hildebrand and Wolfgang Lemme, I'm going to guess. And each of them used the first 2 letters of their names. So J.O. And W.O. to create the company name, which I find fascinating. So J.O. and W.O. Because I never knew that is actually where the name Jowo came from. And today, Jowo nibs are used by like tons and tons of fountain pen brands, and they're pretty much, the main 2 nibs that people use in the market today. So super popular for smaller and larger companies alike, and pretty much everyone has used a Jowo nib, whether they're aware of it or not. Pretty much everybody has at this point, which is really nice. And if the camera shakes in a moment, it's because Parker is about to jump up onto the table. So there's that. But let's go ahead and dip this one. I'm gonna have to put the cap down because it's now rolling away into our ink. It's a little tricky dipping a nib into an ink vial, but have no fear. I can do it for you. I really, really wanted to use this ink because it just smells absolutely amazing. So now we've got, I guess, rhodium plated or just a regular stainless steel. And this is the fine. So ever so slightly more flex there, but again, these are not the flex pens. This one is very smooth. There's not as much feedback as the extra fine, but there is more what I call drag. So it doesn't feel like feedback, like a pencil type feedback, but there is some drag in that there's like some more friction under the nib. So I feel the paper a little bit more. And this is very, very smooth paper, but it's still very pleasant. This would be a really good one if you if you feel like you don't have a lot of control over your writing and you want the pen to slow you down a little bit, this is the one. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. That's actually a good thing for a lot of people, especially if you don't want your pen to be like super, super, super wet all the time, because it'll give you a little bit more control over your writing, which is what most people want. I am one of those crazy people that prefer just to have like the wettest writing pens, where I just want it to be like a fire hose and like glass across the paper where I don't want any friction or anything like that. But I'm a weirdo. Like I said, most people do not want that. All right, let's go ahead and dip the medium now. So far, if I had to choose between the extra fine and the fine, I would choose the extra fine nibs. Mostly because I prefer the way that it feels on the paper, and there really is not much difference in the line width from what I've experienced today. That's not an indicator of the actual nib, it's just because I dipped it. I think I grabbed a broad by mistake. Nope, that's a medium. I can't spell nib apparently. Wow. This is a big jump. My goodness. Very, very smooth. Very smooth. Definitely get a much bigger variation there. All right, out of curiosity, I was only going to do one of the mediums, but I'm going to change my mind. And, oh, I brought out the entire thing. I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to ink up the other medium because I want to see if this is an outlier or, I guess I don't have to do that, or if that is just the way that the mediums are. So I'm going to get this medium here, screw this in. And when you're holding the nibs, by the way, and screwing these in, you want to hold it as close to the base as possible. Do not hold up here so that you don't hurt the tines. Just lightly grasp the base of the nib and feed. I'm sure that the vast, vast majority of you watching this video are like, yeah, duh, but you know, just in case. All right, so let's go ahead and dip this and see, because that to me is a very broad medium. That's not a medium in my opinion. So let's just take a look and see if that was an outlier nib or if that's all of them. All right, second time around. There, that's better. Oh. That's much, much better. So this was very broad. This one definitely seems more like a medium nib. And this one actually feels a little bit better while you're writing as well. Very, very nice. Okay, so I think that one was just an outlier situation because that to me just seemed straight up like a broad nib. It did not seem like a medium nib to me. So, man, I'm still getting ink all over my fingers even though I'm using a Kleenex. So let us put in a broad nib now. And I bet you any money it's going to come out looking like this one. That's just my guess, but I would be willing to bet money on it. So all right. I must say I'm impressed with myself for not spilling a ton of ink everywhere so far. I also would have probably bet a small amount of money that I would have spilled by now. But the video's not over, so there's time. Okay, so it actually is more broad than this one. So I would say this is a true extra fine. This is a slightly bigger extra fine, but still an extra fine. The fine is almost the exact same. There's really no difference between the fine and the extra fine. There really isn't. This is a broad medium. This is a medium, and this is a broad. Definitely a broad. This, though, feels like butter on the page. This feels great. But, of course, with all that tipping, it naturally is going to. So if I now pull it out next to this fine nib, or extra fine nib that I've kept in the entire time, we have Jowo extra fine. Now we have Jowo broad. So certainly a gigantic difference between the two. But they both feel very, very nice. Like, I'm very impressed if I could hold the pen properly. Very impressed. Like, obviously, this one feels a little bit more like a pencil because it is so fine. Whereas this one, there's very little resistance, very little feedback. I'd literally just want to color all day long with this. That's actually all I want to do. They need to break out a coloring book. that is fountain pen friendly, because I could get on board with that. In fact, I would buy it in a heartbeat. And in which case, this would actually be the perfect thing to do for that coloring book, because you would have so many different nibs to choose from, and you can just like dip them and go from there. So yeah, it is absolutely incredible. You know, and the fact that Jowo Nibs are so widely available to everybody is even better. The company is expanding its sales directly to end consumers, so you will see more and more retailers and nib masters selling Jowo Nibs in all of the different varieties that they have. JowoShop.com, so JowoShop.com, is a website dedicated to the sales of Jowo Nibs, serving consumers, pen makers, nib masters, retailers, like anyone can go there. And so, like I said, like they're stainless steel, gold plated steel, duotone nibs, black steel, 14 karat gold, with, you know, the gold color and the rhodium plating, rose gold, 14 karat, and 18 karat gold nibs. And like I said, I don't have any of the gold nibs here to try them, but based on what I've tried in the past, there's not a ton difference in the way that it feels. So like gold nibs originally were the primary material it was made out of, because metals are prone to corrosion and rust, and gold lasted longer. It is a bit softer typically than steel, but honestly, from what I remember of the like gold plated nibs, or sorry, like the actual gold nibs versus these steels, there's such an improvement been made in the stainless steel since back in the day that like it really doesn't matter that much anymore. Like both gold and steel nibs offer, you know, great performance and smooth writing, so the choice for one or the other is really a personal one. It's more just like, you know, aesthetic preferences, I think, especially with Jowo Nibs. There are some nibs where I've found their gold nibs are way better than their steel, like Lamy, for example. Their Lamy 2000 gold nibs, phenomenal, whereas I greatly dislike the regular steel Lamy nibs. But I know I'm also pretty alone in that, so it's up to you guys. But Jowo, I did want to say thank you very much for providing all of these to me, along with some of the history that I've mentioned throughout the video today, so that I can give you guys all of the details. Look at this ink. And again, the ink that I've used today is KWZ. It smells like coffee. Absolutely adore this. And thank you again for sending me this, because I also have it inked up in some other pens. So guys, do check out JowoShop.com. Give some thanks to Jowo in the comment section down below for allowing me to put this all together for you guys. And I will be sending this back very shortly once I rinse out all these nibs now. But guys, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. It really does help the algorithm. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have used Jowo Nibs, and if you have, what one is your favorite? Whether it's gold, steel, extra fine, broad, whatever, doesn't matter. Let me know in the comments down below. Do hit the subscribe button if you have not done so already, so that you don't miss any future videos that I post. To my Patreon members, thank you so much for supporting me, especially in this time away. For those of you who are on Patreon, you know why I had to take time away. But thank you so much for everybody watching this video. As always, I'll see you next time. Bye.